Hi, I'm Vijay.
Hi, I'm Saumil.
Remember those muddy clothes, scraped knees, and hours of playing on the streets?
Remember losing track of time while you're playing with your friends and your mom hollering out to you to come home for dinner?
And that was the reality of every 70s, 80s kids, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think today's parents have a different problem where they're trying to find ways to get kids to play, but screen time and academics takes so much other time.
And I think as we got through it, remember, we got started on writing this book called Get Kids to Play.
Absolutely. I think we looked at space, looked at time, looked at content, looked at the child itself and facilitator and how could we all bring it all together to get kids to play.
And to be honest, this is something I never thought we would write because we thought it was automatically understood that kids would play. And what do you think about the podcast that we have extended it now into?
No, I love the idea. I hope the listeners like it. It's a solution based podcast which will hopefully help them get more kids to play and have kids experience the joy of play.
Boys played more sport in the past and girls probably watched from the sidelines. And I'm hoping that things are a lot more inclusive today.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes today's guest so remarkable. She has built Sisters in Sweat, a community that's really flipped that old script.
And what started off as a single session for 17 women in Bangalore has now become a movement with 10,000 members playing every sport ranging from football to pickleball.
Yep, and they're tackling that massive dropout problem when women leave sports and after school and never return. They're getting teachers, housewives, working executives to play.
And today we are curious to ask her questions on how does this trickle down to getting girls to play as well, and how is that different for her. So we're going to have a chat with Swetha Subbiah, the founder of Sisters in Sweat, who's here to give us her insights.
Welcome, Shweta.
So, Shweta, welcome to this podcast, Get Kids to Play.
Thank you so much for having me.
And, so we'll start with the story and the motivation behind how you started it, Shweta, the
Yeah.
Sisters in Sweat. How a small group that you try to engage, I guess, over the weekends and weekdays led to such a large community. Just tell us about the motivation and the aim for
So
starting.
yeah, the Sisters in Sweat story is a really fun one to tell because it started off at a party, at a friend's birthday party. Tanvi Hans, who is of course co-founder at Sisters in Sweat and a professional football player, accompanied me to this party. She was new to Bangalore; she had just moved from Delhi. So it was my friend's birthday party. So I was going around introducing her to the people there. And I told my friend Shonali that Tanvi is a professional football player. Shonali, for many months before that, had been bugging me to teach her hockey because that was my sport. And I just kept putting her off, thinking, how people say, teach me this, but, they're not really serious. But when I introduced her to football, she just jumped from me to Tanvi and said, teach me football. She was no longer interested in hockey. But of course, it was a party. Everyone was, a few drinks down. So I assumed this conversation was just, going to end with as the night ended. But the next morning, Shonali messaged me and said, hey, remember we had that chat with your friend? And she said that she would teach me how to play football. Can we actually do that? So this is when I realized, okay, Shonali is half serious. So I said, okay, Shonali, football and this is a team sport. So let's call some of our friends. I'll book out a ground next Sunday. I told Tanvi, okay, Shonali is serious about learning football, or at least let's do one session. Of course, at the time, Shonali and at least I was 35 and so were all the girls there. So I knew that, getting ready for sport is incredibly important to reduce the risk of injury. So Tanvi and I designed a session where there was a lot of time spent warming up on fitness related drills before you got into playing the game itself. And when we did play, it was in a very controlled environment, so there was no injury, or the risk of injury was significantly reduced. So yeah, basically what we did is we invited a bunch of girls. Tanvi and me thought maybe 4 or 5 girls will show up, but to our surprise, 17 of our friends showed up. Because once one of them said we were going, they would bring another friend, another friend, another friend. So 17 girls showed up that morning. It was a really, really fun way to spend a Sunday morning, learning a new sport with your girlfriends to cheer you on, to have a few laughs, to give you the encouragement to keep going. I remember when any girl made contact with the ball, everybody started clapping. Like it was that it was that basic the level, but also so fun. And then we ended the morning with dosas at Konak, and everybody there just agreed that this was a fantastic way to spend a Sunday morning, and that we should do it every Sunday if possible. So we created a little WhatsApp group, which is how we started, because then the girls who were part of the WhatsApp group were able to invite their friends and their friends. And so the growth of Sisters in Sweat happened through the WhatsApp group. And over the course of these now close to 8 years, I mean, this year we'll complete 8, we've grown from that initial number of 17 to 10,000 women and 3 cities. More, 4, my bad. We just launched Hyderabad.
Interesting.
By the way, I'm gonna copy this thing and start get kids to play sessions. And just have kids show up.
Absolutely. We try to include the kids, like especially when we have Children's Day or Mother's Day. We see how we can bring the mums. Get the kids on to play as well. And we've noticed a lot. When the kids have a day off from school or whatever. For my Friday basketball sessions, for example, the kids will come and watch the mums play, and the impact that has, and then they want to join as well, and we always welcome them, and it's quite significant, the impact that watching your parent play has on a young child.
A question there, Swetha. So obviously the struggle of going through for so many years, you made it so simple, saying 7-8 years, this many, went from 17 to all that. But what was the struggle? What challenges did you face in specifically getting women and sisters to play there?
You know what? I mean, when I think of what are the challenges to get the women out, honestly, there were very few challenges to bring the women out. Finally, I didn't. We ended up having a problem of there's a lot of demand, but we can't supply as much, because this was in the very early stages, of course, where it was just Tanvi and me, and then we got a couple of interns. But most weekends we were booked out, and the girls, there was a wait list. So for a very long time, the problem was that we couldn't deliver enough sessions. Now, of course, as we've spread across to multiple sport formats, and in Bangalore, I think we do close to 20 sessions a week in different sports. Very often there will be a case where only 2 or 3 girls show up. But our commitment at Sisters in Sweat is that even if one girl shows up, we will still show up for her, right? That consistency is so key. So I think one of the challenges is, everyone starts off really excited, but over time, other priorities sort of prop up and stuff like that. And to keep that consistent number of girls to come into the session can be quite challenging. Of course, then there's it is an operations business. So making sure the ground is booked and they're not canceling on you last minute, or a coach is unwell. With the monsoons coming, we'll have to watch the weather quite closely, because everyone's like, it says it's going to rain. Are you going to cancel tomorrow's session? So those are the operational challenges, I think, that we face from time to time. Yeah.
Interesting. Saumil, any thoughts?
I think Vijay also, I think this is a self-selecting group, right? I mean, they have already raised their hand for this group. To that extent, maybe your question is valid in the point of, okay, how many did not show up after knowing about the group, which you'll never know because they're not here.
Mm-hmm.
But I will tell you that there are a lot of people on the WhatsApp group who take about sometimes a year, 2 years before they attend their first session. So they are very much interested in being part of this group, because it seems exciting, it seems fun, and there's a desire to go out and play. But for them to take that first step sometimes takes up to 2 years. And sometimes that first step is coming to a pizza making event that Sisters in Sweat has hosted. It has nothing to do with sport. And when they come there, they meet some of the other girls who have been playing a sport. They might meet a coach, and then they get inspired and motivated to come and play. But yeah, I think that intimidation factor to play sport exists. To a large extent, it is reduced because it's an all-girls group. But I think that final pull sometimes comes from interacting with the girls from the group or the coaches in a non-sport setting, and then being convinced to come play.
So Swetha, when many of them, although you call it Sisters in Sweat, I'm assuming it's also parents in sweat, mothers in sweat, right? And interestingly, parents are taking their kids, usually they're ferrying their kids. Now, who knows, kids may be coming along to these sessions. how are you, like you as a kid, you mentioned when we spoke before that your mom used to
Yeah.
was an athlete. In this setting, how are things, what is the cross learning that's happening?
Mhm.
Parents are coming there, kids
Mm.
may come. Could it lead to, because parents have become more active and sporty, that more kids will start playing?
Yeah, I definitely think there is that spillover. I mean, for me, it was definitely true that I grew up in a world where women play sport because my mom always played. So this the ideology that sport is for men never existed in my world, which is why I went out and played fearlessly. I never thought, okay, at some point I'll have to drop out. So I think watching your parent, your mother in particular, play definitely plays a role in your psyche as a child as well, to know that this space is also for you. Otherwise, you might feel like, okay, my dad plays sport, but mom stays at home or mom does lunches or whatever, right? So I think we have the opportunity to sort of completely debunk that ideology. Um, and then the other spillover effect is that when moms start playing, they become quite conscious of, the importance of movement. They are aware of, how good that feels. They start making more healthy choices for the household as well. Let's face it, at the end of the day, it's typically the mom doing the grocery shopping. So the minute she starts taking care of her personal health, there's a spillover effect to the family. So I think, from just the visual perspective of watching your mother play has an impact on you. But, on the periphery of, her just choosing healthier life choices, whether it's in the kitchen or wherever it is, that benefits the kid as well in the long run.
Shweta, just to curious, most of these sisters who
Hmm.
play, in your view, what was their
Yeah.
starting point and what were their early experiences when they were in school or when they were growing up around the notion of play and
Yeah.
sport?
So I think we have a pretty mixed group, right? With Sisters in Sweat, we have the beginner group, which is girls who have never played that particular sport or never played sport in their lives. So for that group, I've noticed that they very much thought that, or grew up thinking that they would never be good at sport, that sport was not for them. Grew up with this mindset that, they'll never be able to play. And when we created this space where they could come try, and, I think our Instagram in those early days was very, very sort of instrumental in getting the beginners to come in, because it was all blooper reels. Everyone was swinging and missing, like, and we celebrated that, and it was fun, and there was nothing serious about it. So I think that group of women who, grew up believing that they were no good at sport or they didn't belong on the sport field felt, motivated enough to come and try it. Then we have the intermediate group, which is primarily girls who have played in school, who had access, who maybe even went on to play at the college state level, but then dropped out because life happens, right? Obviously, like in a team sports setting in particular, it's very hard to find a group once you're in your
Yeah,
late 20s, early 30s
of that level also.
of that level. So I think we have created a space for them as well. And then, of course, we have the sisters and misters group, which is the most advanced stage of, the sport that we offer, where we invite the boys to come in, and then the level of play is really sort of up there. And I heard something quite interesting, and I was very proud of this. At the last tournament, I was sitting with this guy who's from Bangalore, who's played football. He said, because of Sisters in Sweat, football has become gender agnostic in Bangalore, because he's watching a game and it was a mixed gender sport. And typically, what you'll see is that if the boys are involved, they're just going to pass to each other because they just want, in a tournament
Yeah,
setting in particular, they want to win, right? But
yeah,
in this
yeah.
particular scenario, and you'll see it if you come into our mixed gender, the boys very much pass to the girls as well. And the girls, I mean, in terms of level of play, look pretty equal. Of course, the boys will always have a little bit of an edge because they're, biologically bigger, stronger, faster. But
Mm.
we certainly give them a run for their money.
Nice. I want to look at this last 30 seconds as a time thing, right? That probably the same thing's happening for two girls today,
Hmm.
right? And what can we learn from the sisters in your group
Hmm.
to undo what's happening to girls today? Because these girls are going to be sisters tomorrow,
Right.
and I would bet that your beginner is the biggest section, and then it's like a steep
Absolutely.
pyramid up, right?
Yes. Yes.
And the fact that the beginner is the biggest section is
Yeah.
telling you that so many people felt that they didn't belong to sport.
Correct.
And therefore, what could we do to undo that today?
Yeah, I mean, good question, and I wish I had the answer. I'm just going to guess here because I don't know what happens at the school level. From my personal experience, I had the ability, I had the skill, so I always felt comfortable playing. I know that many girls sat out because they just thought they were horrible at it, or they were going through stages where their body was changing. So going out and sort of playing. So I don't know what the right answer is. I think there's multiple things going on when a girl is going through those stages. But one thing I think which can be addressed fairly easily is that can we just make it look fun rather than competitive, right?
Yeah,
I think the word sport comes with this connotation of it's competition and you need to be good.
Yeah.
But if you say go out and play is the association is fun. So instead of yeah, I don't know, maybe changing the name up, the word up, perhaps will help.
No, I agree. I think words matter, and
Yeah.
I think it'll be interesting. I know we are collaborating on separate research around girls in play and all that, but I think it'll be interesting to at some point figure out if you can go back to your sisters and ask them what would they have wanted to have
Differently.
changed in their school or in their community when they're
Right.
growing up.
Yeah.
And that could be a nice set of ideas from them for what we should do today.
Absolutely, and I think your answer in terms of the schooling system will be quite. It will be gendered in that if you go to a mixed gender school, that answer will be different. From an all. I went to an all girls school for 10 years, and then I went to a mixed gender for high school and college, of course. I felt that the girls were generally comfortable, but what was preventing them sometimes was their own body and how it was changing, and them feeling uncomfortable. With the mixed gender school, that was the biggest sort of like, I don't want to show up and the boys are going to laugh at me and I'm going to look clumsy.
Yeah. No, I think very soon we might have a choice to make as to do you want to get more sisters to play or solve this boys and girls playing together. They're two very different contexts, right? And this is such a big problem to solve. This is such a big ocean to boil. How many oceans do you want to boil at the same time?
I wonder if the two feed into each other though, Saumil. If you see more girls and boys playing together, that's become normalized, and so then you don't think play is meant for boys. It can happen together. I feel like the two kind of feed into each other in some way. But yeah, this base problem is a big one to solve nonetheless. But perhaps this in some way helps to solve that base problem.
Yeah.
Another related question, Shweta, which may be applicable for anyone, including kids, men, women, anyone. In a city like Bangalore, let's say in a metro, even to get to your place to play again, transportation, commute, booking the place, like you said,
huge
space,
barrier.
but you still manage to. How is this happening? I mean,
yeah, I think we've created a community where there is accountability and where there's fun, right? So I've joined Sisters in Sweat because my friend has told me, and now we together go to a basketball session every Friday. So every Friday, I know my friend, or Thursday evening, my friend's going to, and you'll see this if you're part of our WhatsApp groups or the basketball group, every Thursday evening, one girl will say, I'm in, who else is? And then somebody else will say, I'm in too. So that sort of accountability starts coming in. Like if somebody who's part of the regular group, doesn't vote in, I've noticed they'll be like, hey, Shwets, what are you doing? Where are you? Why are you not coming for the tomorrow session? So then you become part of this group that's, pulling you in to come. And then that once you get there and you've played, it's such a great time. So then you're willing to brave the traffic and all of that to get to the session because it's going to be a good time, and also now you're accountable for somebody else or whatever it is. Yeah.
Have you seen, on the same question, have you seen any clustering on locations? Like people can tend to go nearer versus farther.
No, it is obvious. People prefer to, and that's why we try to go to different neighborhoods because sport and movement fitness is very much hyper local, especially in a city where accessibility is so bad. You have to make sure it's hyper local, which is part of the problem that we're trying to solve is how do we get to all the neighborhoods? How do we activate all the neighborhoods?
Yeah.
because
And you need a critical mass, right? For the experience to happen, you need a critical mass.
Absolutely. Like I said, we'll still show up and conduct the session if 2 or 1 girl shows up, but obviously the experience is completely different. So how we do it is we'll try and put out as much noise to say, hey, we're going to launch a session in, let's say, HSR next week. We get the girls excited about it in HSR, and then we just do a pop-up session. Then we'll see the interest, how many girls showed up, are they going to be more regular, and then we decide, okay, this is a good location to continue doing the sessions. But we need to see that initial interest and excitement.
So I'm very curious on this. But you need the good blend of the social fun and also testing yourself a little bit at let's say even if it's a recreational tournament kind of thing. Do you use it? How do you use it? I mean, even in your group there could be someone, can I just have a go with scores and competitive, or having a leader scoreboard kind of thing?
So we regularly hold tournaments within our within the Sisters in Sweat context as well, right? Not all women want to play like I have girls who are regulars for the sessions, but not necessarily are interested in playing tournament. There are many girls who play the attend the sessions and then look forward to the tournaments. What we've always tried to maintain though with the tournaments is, yes, it is definitely going to be competitive, but we're going to, whenever we find it start to get a little heated and stuff, we sort of step in there and bring it down, and we do things like playing music in the background, so it's always light. The tournament piece is not necessarily for everyone, and it shouldn't be the ultimate and end goal.
Yeah. I have one other question, maybe the penultimate question. What you have done, it looks like, is facilitating and, like energizing, mobilizing the community to come out and play. If you have to, so facilitating versus imagine teaching, coaching, some of those serious stuff. What is your view on the role of Sisters in Sweat here? Is it more of facilitator, or are you also teaching them something, they're learning together, or how are you breaking that?
I think it's definitely a combination where if you look at a car where we're helping assemble the different parts, but our power comes from the fuel that we put into this to power up the car. The fuel is the energy, is the spirit of the sisterhood, is the community. So the coaching and all of that, even the coaching, the way we approach it at Sisters in Sweat, is not the type of coaching where we're training for excellence. We're training here so that you can play the sport, so you can, hold your own in the sport. At the higher levels, at the intermediate level, we're upping the coaching factor, and it'll be a little bit more serious, a little bit more technical. But at the beginner stage, we just want everyone to feel comfortable, to have a good time, and to get familiar and comfortable with the sport. So the approach to coaching is also very much different as if you were to attend an academy where the goal is excellence. Our goal is not excellence. It would be great if excellence is that. That's your.
This sounds like how we started sports 21 years ago. We said creating champions in life, not in sport.
100%.
That's very fascinating.
Yeah.
But Vijay, I feel what they've done very well is to tap in, maybe without having structured that as a thought. The reason why girls play is for the social context more than the physical context.
100%.
And there's research that says that boys play more for the physicality and the competition, girls play more for the coming together and the social context of it.
Absolutely.
And I think starting with that and then enabling play through the coaching, teaching, competition, I think that's a nice insight on this. No reason why people don't play or they stop playing because they didn't get the social context when they were being told to play earlier.
Right.
And I think that's where they went very nicely.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I think learning together, it's just the reverse, right? I'm now thinking training in competitions. You're learning together, having fun. Competitions can almost kill friendships.
Absolutely,
actually.
yeah. This is definitely fostering friendships rather than burning them to the ground.
Like, I don't want to give a hint. I want to win the match. I don't want to even look at it. I want to get on court and
you'll
win
see
the match.
That there is definitely a difference in the uber competitive a sister and the one who's just there for fun. Like the uber competitive sister is not interested in friendship. She's there to win, and she'll take you down. But the one and the majority of them are there to just have a good time. And if your opponent scores a goal, she'll come and high five you. That was wonderful. Where will you see that in serious competition?
Yeah. Rare. Rivals on court and friends outside is the rare. And one last question, Swetha. So, to the listeners and everyone, if you had to what could be a final message? And if you can layer it in a way, there are communities, of course, you're not doing it in schools, I understand, but even within community, if you put school within a community, like if you think of it as a block there, independent homes, apartments, resident welfare associations is one, schools is the third. What is your message to the sort of the stakeholders? Because you've taken it from like real from scratch to such a
Right.
big number now. How do we replicate it
Well,
everywhere
if I
else?
had the answer, I would be replicating it everywhere else. But I think some of the learnings here, which I think could be replicated, is one is, how do you bring that fun factor into every session? How do you keep it light? How do you build that community? What is going to be that anchor, right? For us, right in the beginning, it was a group of very close knit friends. That was the anchor, and that group just grew. And I assume in a residents association that will be easy because you live together and there are friendships there already. So, bring a group together and they will sort of help foster the growth. In schools, I would say, like, when I think of sport in school, I always thought of it ended with competition, and that's where we were headed. There was no question of just go out and have a great time, play. No, you either made the school team or you were not there. You sat out. So how can we make movement and sport more fun at the school level and more sort of inclusive in that sense? Because definitely, if you weren't naturally gifted, you were left out. And so, can we then sort of change that a bit? Yeah.
Amazing. Saumil, any other thoughts?
No, I think nice. Fun, community, and a nucleus or an anchor. I think the three key words that I'm taking away as ways in which we could possibly figure out a way to make more of this happen.
Okay.
Yeah, we're trying to do it in a small way in the school's context, in a very similar context. It has own set of nuances.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's structured, sometimes unstructured.
Yeah.
How do you balance structure and unstructured to
Correct.
make sure it's fun? How do you make
Structured play versus unstructured.
very
Yeah,
often we
yeah.
find
Okay. Yeah.
absolutely, and we find sometimes that the sporty kids go and complain to the principal saying, "Oh, they are not teaching sports properly," whereas we are making sure
Correct.
the dynamic shows up in a very different way,
that's
right?
interesting.
Where sporty kid wants to compete, and we are
Right.
getting the beginners to play, and the sporty kid is getting like
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
So
That's
I
interesting.
feel
Yeah.
all of us
Yeah.
are doing a lot of social engineering. The whole of
Absolutely.
sports is doing a lot of social engineering, just making people talk, solving problems, aligning stakeholders' motivations.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's an
But
interesting
fantastic,
time to
great to
be doing
see.
what we're doing.
Yeah. One of my takeaways, Shweta, is the one who's trying to compete. I think you got to teach them social skills and say, enjoy the sport first.
No, I say let them go on to compete, just to stay out of this space, because then they make it not fun for everybody else sometimes. Yeah.
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 Great stuff. Thank you, Shweta. Thanks for your time.
Thank
And
you, guys. Thank you so much. This was such a fun
yeah,
conversation.
thank you again.
Cheers. Thank you, guys.